Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started anyway. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is Monday, January 12th. This is a regular meeting of the Falls Church City Council. We're delighted that you all are here with us tonight. And here comes our sixth member. Welcome, Ms. Oliver. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Ms. Conley?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Ms. Oliver?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Z?
Here.
Mayor Tarter?
Here.
And Mr. Baruch is absent for work.
That's right. Okay, thank you. Before we get to a motion to adopt the meeting agenda, as you may know, I believe as you know, the city attorney is ill and is unable to attend the closed session, so I think we will need to go ahead and move that to our January 20th work session. With that in mind, do we have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda
So moved.
as amended with the removal of the closed session?
As amended.
Okay. A second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. Madam Clerk, are there any proclamations?
No, sir.
Okay, I understand we do have some oaths of office to administer to new boards and commission members.
Yes, for the Board of Building Code and Fire Prevention Code Appeals, I have Jack Wilburn, Clyde G. Hurst III, and Karen White. And if you all want to just come up here, we'll do your oath together.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Thank you for serving. How many members are on the board, by the way? Do we know? Are you the, five, okay, so we got a new majority then. What's that? That's what I thought, it was that it had sort of gone away for a little while?
Yeah, this is a reconstituted board?
Is this the whole board in its entirety, or just?
No.
No, there's two, 5 alternate 2 officials.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you all for serving. We really appreciate you helping out with the community like that.
Oh, do you guys want to face?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead and take the oath and then come up for a picture maybe in
Okay.
front of the, all right.
For the, this is fine.
Maintain some.
So we will take the oath. Raise your right hand, and I'll say I state your name, and you all can just say your name at the same time, and then repeat after me. So I state your names.
I, Karen White,
Do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent upon me
all the duties incumbent upon me
as a member of the Board of Building Code and Fire Prevention Code Appeals.
As a member of the Code and Fire
Prevention
Prevention
Appeals.
Something.
That was good. According to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
All right, you are
you.
sworn in.
Thank
And I
you.
just need you to sign this for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your service. We appreciate it. Why don't you come on by and we can give you all our congratulations and thanks for, after you sign your,
There you go, sign your. Thank you so much. Thank you. There you go.
thank you all for coming out this evening. Madam Clerk, do we have any, well, I tell you what, let's go first. Are there any public comments? I believe there are one, Mr. Stevens, Tim Stevens. Would you like to come up and join us? Welcome.
Mayor Tarter and members of the council, my name is Tim Stevens, and I'm chair of the Environmental Services Council. The ESC has submitted its annual report for 2014, and I'll briefly discuss some highlights, and I welcome any questions. As you know, the ESC's role is to advise City Council on environmental issues affecting our city. We have 8 incumbent members from the community with 1 vacancy, and we were pleased to add 2 members of George Mason High School this past year. The issues that we considered in 2014 touched on all levels of government. The majority of our time, of course, was spent on local issues. We submitted comments on a number of the city's planning efforts to update the comprehensive plan, including small area plans and the chapter on transportation and open space. We also commented on proposed development projects such as the Kensington. While the support expressed for higher density in our commercial sectors is usually from the financial perspective, such as contribution to our school budgets, we've tried to emphasize that these approaches also have environmental benefits, including lower per capita carbon footprint of individuals living in mixed-use urban developments. Enabling our residents to live without so much dependency on single passenger car trips will, in our view, improve both our quality of life and our environment. We have supported improving home energy efficiency and efforts to substitute renewable for fossil fuel-derived energy. We've urged the improved sustainability of our municipal buildings as they undergo renovation, including our schools. While LEED is not perfect, it is the standard that we have today and is used effectively in a number of other jurisdictions to help ensure best environmental practices in our buildings. We've continued to urge more outreach on stormwater issues by our city staff and have launched new discussions on the issue of leaf management. As is often the case in Virginia, many local preferences and actions require state legislative permission. So we reached out to our delegate, Marcus Simon, for help on the ability to require notification of neighbors when residents in detached houses want to spray insecticides in their yards using commercial contractors. We appreciate the support of City Council to include our various recommendations on state legislation in your state legislative platform. We encourage you to take action on one federal issue by expressing your support on a ban on industrial gas development in the George Washington National Forest. We were pleased that you agreed. And with the decision issued in December by the U.S. Forest Service, it now appears that our preference for banning hydraulic fracturing in the George Washington National Forest is pretty much a done deal. There's general acceptance by many who followed this issue that input by local jurisdictions such as Falls Church did indeed have an influence on the outcome. We missed having someone on city staff to address community energy issues this past year, but we tried to fill in where possible. We worked on the application to the Council of Governments regarding our efforts to achieve EPA Green Power Community status, and we're pleased to learn in October that indeed we were selected for COG's Climate and Energy Leadership Award. We would like to thank our liaison, Councilman Dan Z, for his consistent high level of support and for his advice on our many activities. And we look forward to the appointment of a new city staff liaison. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all your service. You've really helped put Falls Church on the forefront, I think, of environmental issues in the region, and we appreciate your efforts in helping us get that COG award as well. I think it's partly or mostly due to your leadership that we received that award, I guess probably in November. But our thanks to you. Is there anyone on council who'd like to ask Mr. Stevens anything or offer any comments? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Stevens, I just want to express my thanks to you and your committee. The reference you made at the beginning of your remarks about the environmental and quality of life benefits of denser, smart growth. That's a very important view that we need to advance here in the city. It's a view that's relatively new, I think, to our discussion and debate here, and your committee, under your leadership, has been a very persuasive and forceful proponent of that position, and I think it's very helpful, and it points a way to our future that will not only be good for our environment, but it will be good for walking, biking, and bringing our city, even as it grows, to have a more human scale in the way that it functions in a day in and day out way. So thank you very much for your work.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Mr. Stevens, for all your hard work. We know this doesn't get done by itself, and we look forward to the good work of the ESC and you on it this coming year when we make further inroads into augmenting our presence regionally as well as in this municipality for renewable power and for energy efficiency. So thank you again for all your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming out this evening. Madam Clerk, I believe we have some written comments. Would you like to summarize those for us?
Yes, the council received from the executive director of the Metropolitan Washington EAR Incorporated a thank you to the city for grant funding provided via the Community Services Fund to allow them to make news and information available to those who cannot effectively read print material. She also praised Housing and Human Services Senior Administrative Assistant Susan Richter for her professional assistance. John Murphy of 308 Chestnut Street asked that the City Council delay the hearing regarding substandard lots at 602 and 604 North Oak until the City Attorney has issued an opinion on the matter. Donald Rea, 118 Gresham Place, asked the City Council to consider whether renovation and expansion of George Mason High School is feasible and to explore the possibility of contracting school operations to Fairfax County. Ron Brousseau of 607 Northwest Street forwarded his proposed revision to the Affordable Dwelling Units section of the draft voluntary concessions document. The president of the League of Women Voters forwarded the results of a visioning session conducted by the League in Falls Church in November. Cindy Wackerbarth of 304 Walnut Street shared her views about the Mason Road development, stating that she continues to be skeptical, is opposed to the project at this time, and asked the City Council to reconsider possible development at that site. And Tim Stevens, chair of the Environmental Services Council, forwarded the ESC's annual report. And finally, the Advisory Board of Recreation and Parks forwarded a recommendation to the Planning Commission and City Council that they adopt the draft Parks for People plan with one change.
Thank you very much. Do we have any council requests? Any requests? Mr. Duncan?
Since the Broad and West issue came up, do we expect a resubmittal by the applicant, Mr. Shields, in any specific time frame?
We have not yet received an application, but we are expecting it mid-January.
Okay, thanks.
This is mid-January now. Are you expecting any day now then?
Mid to late January.
Okay,
I'd say we're still in early mid-January.
okay. Mr. Z? Mr. Z?
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder if you could just tell us briefly what the status of funding for traffic calming and the CACT is. There's discussion earlier that we had provided some amount of funds, I think it was $200,000, to move ahead with some projects that were approved, and there's some either confusion on the part of the citizenry or maybe on my part, I don't know, so if you could clarify that, that'd be great.
Well, in the way that the neighborhood traffic calming is designed to work is that the project goes through the CACT, gets approved, then it gets in line for funding, and then funding is appropriated in the budget process, and then the project proceeds after that. Last year, the council did fund a specific traffic calming project at Kent and Parker Avenue to accelerate that one. They funded that essentially three months in advance of the budget adoption. So that project was funded, and so additional traffic calming projects we are now putting into the budget for FY16, and that will be part of your budget deliberations coming up in March and April. So that's the plan, and Cindy, any additional information on that?
That would be accurate, and FY16 would include funding for the specific project that council received email, a communication, a petition from for Pennsylvania. And additionally, staff is looking at recommending an allocation every year so we could continue to do additional projects. And I know Mr. Stoddard replied to the citizen acknowledging receipt of the petition and gave an update in terms of the budget process as well.
Thank you. That's my question.
Mr. Snyder?
Thanks very much. I would be remiss if I didn't let this meeting go by without an expression of appreciation to city staff and the Northern Virginia Parks Authority in Fairfax County for working together with the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation in a series of wonderful events. I was interested that the example that the courageous people on Tinner Hill showed about how to address an issue, and in the context of the right to petition government, a free press, and the rule of law, they were able to prevail, and how that is such a better way than we see pushed both domestically and internationally. In connection with a free press, a colleague of mine sent this cartoon, and it just struck me again that when you compare recent events here and elsewhere to the example that they showed, how important it was that we did what we did. And I want to thank all of our citizens who made it possible, the members of this council, prior council, and all the staff, and particularly Cindy Mester for her effort in that regard. So I just wanted to put that all on the record at this point with a feeling of really heartfelt appreciation to all involved, because I do think that site and what they did there is a beacon to all of us as to how to resolve our disputes and how to move forward and increase human rights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I'd like to echo your thanks. It was a wonderful weekend, and I also would like to thank you for all your efforts over the many years to make this happen. So our thanks to you and to the community, and of course to Ms. Messner as well. So it was a very nice weekend. Any other council comments, council requests? Karen Oliver?
Yes, I wonder, as we go into the budget process, Mr. Shields, if we could get a report on staff turnover, particularly key positions such as liaisons to our boards and commissions. I'm interested in how many of those we have lost in the last year.
And I will prepare that report for you. Just one note, Mr. Stevens spoke earlier about a liaison with the Environmental Services Council, and that function was performed by Allison Lorenz, who left us to work for Arlington County. Our Director of Public Works is, I think, on the verge of hiring her replacement, and we're excited about that. And that announcement should be within a week or so.
Any other council requests, comments? You can, council requests are what's called for now, but we can you interpret that pretty broadly if you'd like.
I'll just say it now. How about that? And then if it's for later, it's for later. Next week on January 20th, our treasurer, Jody Acosta, is going to hold a tea for senior citizens at the community center in conjunction with the Senior Citizen Center to talk about the tax deferral and tax abatement programs. And I guess my request is that that be promoted to as many appropriate people as possible. There is a PR plan that the treasurer's office is using, but I would ask if others would share that, council members and staff, with as many people to whom that tax deferral and abatement applies.
Thank you. Okay, unless there are any other council requests, why don't we go on to the report of the city manager, Mr. Shields?
Thank you, Mayor Tarter, members of council. Just two things to report on. One, I wanted the council to be aware of our outreach campaign for the capital improvements program, and Cindy Mester is our lead staff for CIP development. And a couple of announcements on that. On the city webpage, we have an online survey for the CIP, and this is the first year we've had a survey instrument to help gather input in an organized way on our choices and priorities for capital planning. And so if you go to the city webpage, you'll see on the left-hand side a link to budget and capital improvements program. If you follow that link, you'll be able to find a link to that survey. A couple other dates, just in terms of capital planning. Cindy will present the CIP, an overview of it on January 20th. And then on February 2nd, there'll be a more formal presentation of the CIP and its projects. There is a new meeting on Sunday, February 8th, which is designed to be in a format of a town hall meeting with some tables where people can learn more about each of the capital improvements projects and then weigh in on priorities and choices that we have in our capital planning. The Planning Commission is scheduled to adopt its recommendations to the City Council on February 23rd. Then I will present recommendations to the Council, and you'll adopt ultimately the CIP on April 27th. So we are, at Council's direction, because of the importance of our capital decisions this year, really trying to gear up the public input on the capital planning this year. Secondly, I wanted Council to be aware of a regional transportation planning effort that we'd like to bring to Council, and we'll schedule it at a date that's convenient. But VDOT completed in 2012 an Inside the Beltway study, which recommended some changes to increase throughput on I-66. Some of them have big impacts on the city, and we want the council and ultimately the community to be aware of what VDOT is planning to do. One of the big changes that the council will be briefed on is having I-66 convert to high occupancy toll lanes during certain times of the day, and the HOV would still be in place, but HOV3 as opposed to HOV2 currently. There are other changes, but I think those are two that will probably attract the most attention, and we'll want the council and the community to be aware of these potential changes that are coming. And so we'll work with council to schedule that briefing with representatives of VDOT in the month of February. That's all I have to report tonight. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions, Mr. Duncan?
Thank you. Mr. Shields, the Sunday, February 8th event, is that contemplated as it's a great idea, as a city-run event? I was at a meeting of League of Women Voters over the weekend, and also have heard from some folks of the Community Issues Forum group who have sponsored those Sunday sessions, and they were wondering if they could get involved, and I said, well, I'm not sure what the structure is. I know the city is talking about doing what you just said. Is that seen as something that they would like co-sponsor or at least help publicize?
I certainly would welcome the opportunity to have co-sponsors and other partnerships in the effort. Today we did confirm that we'll have the community center senior room, so we'll have a lot of space. I am asking staff to join me so we can have some experts on the projects and some display boards, and then want to have a facilitated process, so having some partnerships. If you want to have somebody contact me, that would be super.
That'd be great. Okay, well, yeah, I would suggest that we get a hold of League of Women Voters president, who the vice mayor knows fairly well, and VPUS, the Community Issues Forum group, has CBC and the local Democrats and Republicans. I think we all know the folks who are involved, but I do think it would be helpful if each of them, got a little participatory billing would help draw a crowd.
Most of the groups you listed, I hit this evening to send out the survey and ask them to forward it to their membership as well as to the schools. But in terms of the February 8th coordination, I'd be glad to do that.
Okay, great, thanks.
We're also thinking along the same lines. That Thursday afternoon time slot, VPUS has been so successful with that in terms of getting numbers, and the League of Women Voters.
Sunday.
I'm sorry, Sunday. That's the reason we wanted to try that as a time slot.
Thank you. Other questions for Mr. Shields?
February 8th, Sunday, 1:30 to 3:30 at the community center.
So, Mr. Shields, if I could just go back to the VDOT study, I want to make sure the community in Falls Church, the citizenry has a chance to participate and understand what's going on and then offer input to either VDOT or ourselves. Can you give us a little bit more flavor of what's going to transpire? And I have had some communication with VDOT, but to me, it's still uncertain their means of communicating with both us and the community. Do you have more information?
Well, they completed their study in 2012, and they want to move forward. Now, what that means, I think we need to understand a little bit more exactly what the opportunities still are for comment and what their schedule is. And I don't know that. And so that's one of the things we need to find out. But this outreach, they do want to meet with the governing bodies, I think, of all the Northern Virginia jurisdictions to brief you directly, answer questions that you have, and we'll try to get as much information to you in advance of that briefing as well.
Okay. Mr. Duncan?
Just thought, in the context of a question, just want to thank staff for everything that was done to get the lights up in the holiday season. We have not met since those lights were still in the stage of discussion as a formal group, so I want to extend my personal thanks for all the effort that I know went to, and thanks to everybody who had a piece of it. And my question is, when are we taking them down? Are we taking them down? Is there going to be a discussion about that, or what's the timetable?
Well, I think there are some people who want to have a discussion of it. It will be our recommendation and the city arborist's recommendation to take them down in the March-April timeframe before they leaf out again. But we've got some time between now and then to talk about that.
Okay, that's a good long time. And thanks to the city clerk for producing the 2014 results of the city document, which has been sent to us in draft form, I guess. Is that posted for the public yet, or is that just for us? Oh, you just put it up.
It just happened, so
Even
if
as
you'd
we
like it to be posted on the website, we can definitely do that.
I mean, everybody should speak to that themselves. I thought it was quite good, and just wanted to thank you for doing it.
Yeah, I guess if anyone has any comments, if they're able to be given now, so be it, but otherwise we can pass them on to Mr. Shields and Ms. Heath. Okay, thank you. So why don't we go on to business on the agenda. Madam Clerk, do you want to call the first item?
Yes, we have a second reading for public hearing and council action, TR 1442, resolution requesting the General Assembly to amend Section 1.02 of the city charter to include in the description property recently included in the city through settlement of litigation over the water system, and this has been properly advertised.
And council, this item probably looks familiar to you. You acted on this in November to ask the General Assembly to amend the city's charter to reflect the boundary adjustment that was part of the voluntary boundary adjustment with the water sale agreement. And as it was presented to the General Assembly, there was, if the council may recall, there was some discussion about whether it was proper to have the full metes and bounds description. And under the new state law, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to reference the acts of assembly or a court order as opposed to listing all the metes and bounds. However, if you go back into the historical record, if our metes and bounds of the core regular city of 1948 are taken out, then they're not referenced anywhere. And so it was a catch-22, and this will solve it, and so we asked for the council to adopt it tonight. There's no material change from the action you took in November, but this will produce a better outcome.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone on council? Any comments?
And this goes to the General Assembly upon passage by us, and
And it does, and just for full disclosure, the corrected version of this is actually already, gone through Legislative Information Services and is ready for the action of the General Assembly, but we do need the council's action on this tonight as well.
And it is timely for tonight, so it can go to the session which starts on the 14th.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this matter? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Is there anyone else on council who has any questions or comments? Or should we take a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TR 14-42.
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote, please?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Will you call the next item?
We have TO 15-01, ordinance to approve a 6-month second extension of the cable television franchise held by Coxcom LLC until July 31, 2015, under all existing terms, to allow the city and the franchisee to complete renewal discussions. This is a first reading.
In this item, the council has granted an extension one time before. We're asking for an additional 6 months. Just other priorities have crowded this out, but we will work to negotiate a new franchise agreement and have that completed within the next 6 months.
Are there any questions? Ms. Conley?
This is the agreement with Cox. We also have agreements with Verizon and RCN.
Correct.
And when do they come up?
RCN is due now, and so they're ready for us to work with them as soon as we get farther along with Cox, and then shortly thereafter is Verizon. So they're pretty much all due at the same time.
And do they usually end up all being the same? Is this the first one that everything else will follow from?
Some of the core terms are the same, but some of the specific benefits are tailored to the size of the footprint of the company and to meet some different needs that the city has. So a smaller company will not provide as much as a larger company like Verizon or Cox.
So, and that was Verizon is our largest franchisee?
Yes.
And then Cox and then RCN?
Yeah, RCN has a pretty small footprint.
Okay. So do these then follow along with what other small cities, like Vienna and Fairfax have, those agreements?
We do look at those for comparisons to make sure we're getting our maximum benefits, because most of those other jurisdictions, especially Fairfax County, has just renegotiated all of those.
Right.
But then we tailor it to meet our specific needs. So it's a starting point to compare the other agreements.
Okay. And then how long does this agreement last?
The Cox one, we currently have a request from Cox for it to be 14 years. And usually you get more benefits if it's a little longer. But most of these have expired or were short-term, so we're trying to get more standard terms and maximum benefit with the city. With Cox, we have 3 franchisees, so you tend to get some good competition. When you do a utility, there's one electric company, so it's a little harder. So right now, Cox has 14 on the table, and we haven't started those discussions with
14
RCN and
years on the
Verizon.
table. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Duncan?
There is money involved here, right?
Either money or in-kind benefits to the city, cable drops, Wi-Fi, things like that.
Right, right. I mean, there's technical upgrades that presumably we would be seeking, but in the agreement, the tripartite agreement that helps fund the cable access channel, that money comes from agreements such as this, am I right?
That would be, yes. So the franchisees are asking to use the city public property as right-of-way to bring in their services, and so in exchange for that, there is either in-kind services or money or the PEG fees. The PEG fees that are used for the TV station have some federal regulations wrapped around them and then come from the 3 franchise agreements that we currently have in place.
Okay. The reason I ask is just if we're going to wrap it up by July 31st, as we go through the budget process this time, I'm very hopeful that I might understand the cable access agreement and the PEG fees and all of that. I'm encouraged that the Cable Access Board, which is, by the way, meeting Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the Oak Room, has a couple of new members who are, helping the current members gather things together, and I believe they're going to be working with you and with Susan and others who have authority over the station And so I guess I would hope that if it's possible, that to the degree that there are budgetary implications in the channel, that we might know about those before our vote on the budget, or certainly by the end of the fiscal year, June 30th, if that's possible, just so we could, tie those loose ends together and know where we're going ahead.
Part of the reason for the requested delay, besides Cox actually asked for part of a 3-month delay, and then we mutually agreed to longer, is to allow our new city attorney to become familiar with the federal and state code and regulations and our franchise agreements, and then be ground zero with me, since the city manager's designated me to work these for the negotiations.
Right.
The PEG fees are a set percentage across the board, and then the tripartite agreement you referred to is actually not tied to the franchise agreements, but it's an internal adopted document. So it gets complex, and so it'll be good to have some time to work on it.
That's the only reason I'm raising this, because I think all of us have seen email traffic going back and forth, and it is a somewhat time-consuming effort that is being undertaken here, but I think it's important to do it, and to do it right, and hopefully to do it in the next 90 or so days, so that we can then, move forward over the next 13 or 14 years. Okay, thanks.
What kind of money are we talking about here, just ballpark on an annual basis, either in kind or in cash, about?
Let's see, I don't have an in-kind calculation. 50,000? CFO says about 50,000, and that would be all of the PEG fees.
Per year?
Yes.
For all 3 carriers, or for
All
just one?
3 carriers, and then the station is a PEG station, and not all localities have a PEG station anymore, and not all get PEG fees. So we are one of the few that still get that added benefit, and then PEG stands for Public Education and Government, and 3 parts, hence the tripartite agreement, where we divvy up that money. The one thing that is very clear for federal regulations that we don't need to do a lot of research on is only for capital. So it cannot be used for operating expenses, which has
Okay.
been one of the lack of clarities among the Cable Access Board that we have recently clarified.
Ms. Conley?
So when you say $50,000 a year, is that 50 from each, from Cox, RCN, and
No,
Verizon, or
combined.
50,000 total
Total.
from all 3? That is then divided among Cable Access Board, city, and schools?
That's the 3% PEG and not the 5% gross stuff that's in the general operations. Yes, divided between the 3. And historically, we have given that to the TV station for operating, not into city government budget. For example, it went to the TV station.
Okay. So I've heard it said that the TV station, the cable TV station, covers its own expenses based upon those fees, but that is not
No.
so. It covers about a quarter of their expenses.
I think we need to
Yeah.
get you the numbers.
That's fine.
And another reason we needed more time, because we do have a new city attorney, a new structure. We knew there was a lot of questions with the Cable Access Board for fees, the services, and we want this to be a community engagement process where they'll be part of the stakeholders as we negotiate options and then bring the actual franchise agreement to council to execute. And I can't run it as well concurrently with CIP and General Assembly.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this? Is there any member of the public who wishes to address this matter? Seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to grant TO 15-01 first reading, schedule public hearing, and second reading for January 26, 2015, and advertise the same according to law.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote, please?
Yes. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Z?
Yes.
Mayor Tarter?
Yes,
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, will you call the next item, please?
We have TR 1502, resolution providing guidance to the city manager on the development of the FY 2014 city budget.
It's the FY 2016 city budget. It'd be good to replay that one. The resolution that's before the City Council tonight was discussed extensively at your last work session and is based on the presentation on December 1st with the joint session of the School Board and the Planning Commission. And rather than represent all of that information, I will just note the one change that resulted from the discussion at your work session. And I know that there was discussion about other changes, and in our understanding of the flow of the discussion at work session, other changes were decided not to be acted on the text. But the one change that is in the text at line 178 is simply similar to the language was for capital planning for the budget itself, that should be accompanied with a public information campaign that explains the budget clearly and solicits public participation input in budget decisions. And so that's the only change since the draft that you saw at work session. And I'd be happy to take any comments or other amendments to it if that's the council's pleasure tonight, and answer any questions about it.
In addition, you also made a change to the staff report, did you not?
I did.
Okay, I think the change that was requested and discussed at the work session was also made, correct? Okay, great. Do we have any questions or comments from council?
Sure.
Mr. Duncan?
Thank you. You said comments too, so.
Okay.
Is that all right?
It is.
Okay, fine. Not to take too long. The document we're passing tonight represents the beginning of a arduous journey that we're going to make in a very short time, about 90 days. We'd hoped for a brighter picture in the regional and state economy than we now face. A few months ago, it appeared that things might be going a little better at those levels than they are. The challenge I think we face in communicating what we're doing to the public is that the city itself seems to be in pretty good shape. And we are going to be, I believe, doing some very exciting things in the budget and CIP to come. Messaging, the fact that we are going to be making investments, long-term investments, with a portion of our water sale proceeds, and I hope wrestling to the ground finally both the library and City Hall CIP projects, that we're going to be doing all those things which involve, fairly significant sums of money at a time when operating spending for the coming fiscal year is going to be extremely tight. As the document says in line 24, funding levels for expenditures for schools and general government operating, that is, in FY16 would need to remain essentially flat relative to FY15, absent any change to tax rates. This is an opportunity, I think, to explain to the public that we are moving on 2 tracks, at least 2, maybe 3, water proceeds, CIP projects, and operating expenses. As we look at those operating expenses, I think you already heard tonight our keen interest in the cable access money, which is not a large sum, but as we recall from the last budget, and Mr. Snyder and others who've served longer than me know that in almost every budget it comes down in the end to sometimes just a couple of $300,000. And so every penny really is going to be counting. So what we do in the way of expenses, what we earn in the way of revenues, where school enrollment stands is something that I think we're going to watch extremely closely over the next 90 days. And particularly on the school side, the enrollment numbers, because we know that school spending is largely personnel driven, and obviously if there are more kids, you have to have more personnel. To that end, I looked at the school's website today, and I think it's worth noting that the enrollment that the schools reported in September of 2013 was 2445, and the enrollment that they are most recently reporting at the end of December of this past year was 2467. So over the 18 months represented in that span, that's an enrollment growth of 22 pupils. That's a .0089, or less than 1% enrollment growth, which is, it's good news, I think. I mean, we're all happy, I think, to have families and children, obviously. But we do benefit, I think, from an opportunity to catch our breath, I hope, in this fiscal year. And that's a number we need to keep a very close eye on. The schools are to report enrollment data according to their chart at the end of January, February, and March. So before we vote on the budget, we'll have snapshots of where our enrollment is going. And, of course, the budget that we pass will be in effect through the middle of 2017, is that right? 16, middle of 2016. And by that time, some of the new projects that are still just coming up out of the ground may be open. And so we want to keep a close eye on the potential for enrollment growth represented by those new buildings, although fortunately, I believe in this fiscal year we're going to be voting on, those new buildings will not yet be generating public service expenses. So tomorrow night, the school board will hear the superintendent's view on the budget. We wish them luck and offer to listen to their concerns as well as work together with them to advance the cause of public education in a way that the entire community can feel, as it should, the investment that we all value in our schools, and that we can do right by the city in all the other areas that I mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Are there any other comments or questions? Ms. Conley?
I just have one comment, and it's just to Mr. Duncan about the enrollment growth figures that he just quoted, because I think he compared did you compare an 18-month comparison? And I just want to make sure everyone in the public knows, when you look at school enrollment figures, September 30th is the same, what we compare year to year. And the school budget, or the school enrollment figures always change over the course of the year. So if you compare January to January, different dates to different dates. So just as we're doing that, make sure we're always looking at those September 30th numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I tried to give the longer span of time just to allow time for, more things to happen, apartment buildings to open and so forth. But the September 13 to September 14 numbers were actually almost the same, 2455, 2421. I think that might be 1%. But it's interesting. There's been a fair amount of, as you say, there's been a fair amount of stability in our school enrollment over the period of time that the school board's data presents. Although, of course, within a year there is some fluctuation. I think the number was as high as 2480 at one point, and it's actually slipped back down a little bit as of the end of December. But I do think it's accurate to say that we're in the budget year that we're going to be discussing, have every reason to anticipate that the enrollment figures are not going to be as high as they were in some of the recent years we've dealt with.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address this matter? Okay, seeing none, the matter is closed to the public. Ms. Oliver, you have a comment or question?
I had a process question. Does anybody know whether Mr. Baruch had an opportunity to review and comment on this, since he's missed both meetings at which it's been raised?
I don't have a good answer for that. I imagine he's received the packet or had access to the packet, as we all have electronically. But I did not receive any comments from him. To my recollection, Mr. Shields, did you?
I have not received any comment, no.
Okay.
One other comment. We had talked previously about having a formal priority list of unmet needs or unfunded projects. It's not incorporated in the budget guidance. I don't know that it needs to be, but I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we wanted that when you make the presentation, that we're clear on the prioritized list of is it right there? Ah. Never mind.
Okay, well, unless there are any other comments, why don't we go ahead and take a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of TR 15-02.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote, please?
Yes, Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Z,
Yes.
Mayor Tarter.
Yes,
Motion carries 6-0.
thank you. Madam Clerk, will you call the next item?
Yes, we have a resolution appointing city council members as liaisons to regional and city boards and commissions and to city council committees as of January 1, 2015, and that is TR 1503.
Thank you. Does anyone have any issues with the revised appointments? Yes, Mr. Duncan?
I'd overlooked this before. Am I reading this right? Falls Church Cable Access Corporation Board? It's got Karen's name. Shouldn't that have my name? Karen? Oh, okay. I had not looked at this closely enough to just notice that. Did anybody see anything else?
I do. The council committees, number 42, it has Nader Baruch as chair of Budget and Finance and Phil Duncan as vice chair. That should be opposite.
Yeah, that was,
Oh, yes. I thought there was an earlier version of this that had things rendered differently. Yes, so under the Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. Baruch is the vice chair and Mr. Duncan is the chair for 2015. Anything else?
Madam Clerk, did you take note of that?
So what happened was you switched economic development and budget and finance.
Actually, we stayed right where we were.
The plan originally was to switch. The plan is now they would stay where they were previously,
I
which
got
would
you,
be
okay.
Mr. Duncan as the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, with Mr. Baruch as the vice chair.
I didn't get the second part of that on the budget and finance, so yes, okay.
Are there any other, the Tree Commission, was there discussion with Mr. Baruch in the meantime about
Yeah,
that?
yes, he decided to pass on that.
Okay. Okay.
Does the Tree Commission meet? Which Wednesday?
Wednesdays, the
But-
same as the library board.
So, which is the same as Cable Access Board? No, not the same as that.
It's like the third Wednesday at 7:30.
The third Wednesday.
Do we have anyone who would be able to take this over? Ms. Connolly's nodding her head yes. Let the record reflect. No? Okay. All right, so unless there's someone who can do it right now, why don't we leave it vacant for the immediate time, maybe with staff, with the notation to bring this up again in a couple weeks, and see if we can find a way to get a representative or liaison to this commission? Okay, are there any other changes that need to be made to this document at this time? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Yeah, the COG appointments, do we have those? Are they in this?
Those were done at the work session because they had
Okay,
requested
right.
those earlier.
Okay, I just wanted to make a public announcement that there are other appointments that we acted on during the work session. So, good, thanks.
And those went to COG.
Comments or changes that need to be made to this document? Ms. Oliver, I see you've been taken off the school board gang of 8. I guess now it's a gang of 7. Was there anything else that you wanted to be taken off, that you're not taken off of?
No, I think with the change to the Falls Church Cable Access Corporation Board, this reflects the maximum of what I can handle.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll tell you, unless there are any other changes requested, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move to approve TR 15-03.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote?
Yes, Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes?
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder. Yes. Mr. Z,
Yes.
Mayor Tarter,
Yes,
and the motion carries 6-0.
thank you. And the next item, are there any consent items? None? Okay. Let's take a look at what else we have for tonight. Okay, any business not on the agenda? Any council member comments? Anything that didn't come up earlier? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Yeah, just two quick comments. I understand that in some of the blogs, the issue of the George bus system has come back. And to borrow the comment that Yogi Berra once made, we should keep history in the past. But in any event, it's back, and I would urge everyone to take a look at the record of the time. There was significant community support for it. However, the council made a decision to eliminate it. I also thought at the time that decision was made is there were options that would have addressed any concerns that would have kept it. And ironically, the notion of having the city's own transit system has come back in discussions regarding economic development. But in any event, I just wanted to provide that information for the record. Secondly, the issue of the library expansion has come up, and I just wanted folks to know that I believe the library is fundamental to our community. I support improving and increasing its facilities. The question is, what's the most cost-effective way to do that? And for that reason, I still want to explore the possibility of putting some of the library functions in a new development to see where the numbers come out on that and to have that enter the community discussion. So I just wanted to set that straight for the record, that in no way is it an indication that we don't need a library or that we don't need to improve our library facilities. Thanks much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Snyder. Are there other council member comments? Anything else from anyone on council? Okay, seeing none, why don't we go on to approval of the minutes? Are there any comments to the minutes of October 27th, 2014? Any changes, amendments, corrections to those minutes? Anyone have any changes at all? Has anyone? Nothing? Okay. How about the minutes of November 10th, 2014? Are there any changes or correction to those minutes? Ms. Conley?
There was just one that I emailed to Ms. Heath. No, it was like a half an hour before the meeting started. It's just a spelling of a name that I think I misspelled when I sent it to you, one of the students in line 28. Oh, Kiara Curtin is spelled C-I-A-R-A, I think, but I emailed it to you with the correct spelling. Okay. And I think I gave it to you incorrectly originally.
Okay, any other changes to the minutes of November 10th, 2014? Okay, with that change, is there a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the minutes of October 27, 2014, and the minutes of November 10, 2014.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, will you call the roll call vote?
Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Duncan,
Yes?
Ms. Oliver,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder. Yes. Mr. Z,
Yes.
and Mayor Tarter.
Yes,
And the motion carries 6-0.
thank you. Our closed session, number 14, as you recall, was deleted from this agenda due to the fact the city attorney is ill and unable to come tonight, but that will be moved to the 20th of January. Is there any other business to be discussed tonight? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed, abstentions? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.